This is an SM Media production. Everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Scottish Football Show right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be here again, joined as always by Wilson and Shankers. Wilson, how we doing?
Fine, thank you. Fine, Scott. Thanks for having us back on.
Brilliant. Shankers, what's happening?
Aye, good to be here again, Scott. Cheers for having me.
Pleasure as always. We've got two very special guests with us in this episode. We're joined first of all by former SFA referee, one of the best referees this century in Scottish football, Charlie Richmond. Charlie, pleasure to have you on. Thanks very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Scott. Delighted.
How's life? How's everything been?
Everything, it's murder, isn't it? It's been an absolute terrible year and if we stay to the football calendar, no football to watch. No, got my weekly visit down to watch Shankers trying to batter in the goals there. And then obviously with my son and daughter playing, they're just cooped up in the house now like caged tigers.
Brilliant. We've also got a very special guest joining as well. We've got Stuart Urquhart, the President of the Scottish Amateur Football Association. Stuart, thanks very much for coming on. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Welcome, Scott. Just a bit worried when you said Charlie's one of the best referees in the world. No, that's not how I remember him. Never mind. That's fine.
How are you, Stuart? How's
Aye, good. A bit like what Charlie says. To be fair, obviously, fed up with not being able to get out there with the guys and the football with umpteen meetings, some of which are better than others. But it's frustrating, as everybody who's involved in, particularly in amateur football, knows.
So, as well as that, can we just kind of start off with where are kind of negotiations as such, but where are we kind of in the position with amateur football? Obviously, the meeting last week, and I know Wilson's kind of keen to say a few things in this, but where do you kind of stand in just to kind of let the players and everybody associated with the clubs know where they stand?
Well, Scott, I've tried to keep people up on Twitter as much as I could. I never used to use Twitter until the last 6 or 7 months. But basically, where we are is not really. I don't feel much further forward. Clearly, the government have decided there'll be no football, adult football, apart from the SPFL in level 3 or level 4. So that's level 3 and level 4 covers probably 80% of the amateur game. You're right, I had a couple of meetings. I had a meeting with the SFA on Monday, and we had a meeting with the Sports Minister for Scotland on Friday. And we've had other meetings, to be fair, with other MSPs. I've got to be honest with you and say the MSPs who we've met have tried to be diplomatic with them, which is sometimes difficult. But I felt they were towing the party line, if I'm honest. The one on Friday with the Sports Minister, Joe Fitzpatrick, was a bit better. I felt as if he took cognizance of what we were saying. Now, whether that will get us anywhere will obviously be down to the First Minister and the clinicians. But at least we felt we were listened to on Friday, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to kind of bring Wilson into this as well. Is there anything you kind of want to ask Stuart about the current situation?
I brought this subject up last week. Obviously, I follow Stuart and all the amateur stuff on Twitter after being part of it for, best part of 15 years at different teams and whatnot. And again, I'm looking for a simplistic approach here. I don't understand, and I'm quite sure there's several other guys are the same. Why is the semi-professional football like Darvo, Irvine Meadow, all these guys allowed to play, yet the amateur football isn't? I don't know if you can tell us the ins and outs, Stuart, but what's the government or the SFA's justification on that?
What I can tell you, that there's a couple of things, and this is one of the arguments or discussions I had with Ian Maxwell, the Chief Executive of the SFA, and the Sports Minister on Friday. It was decided going back August, September time that the SPFL would be allowed to play. professional game, if you like, be allowed to play. There was a bit of lobbying for, can we just call them the juniors at the moment, because that's how we all know them really. Tier 6, there was a bit of lobbying for them, and in their wisdom, the Scottish Government, assisted by the SFA, decided that Tier 6 would come under the Professional Game Board, and they would have the same exemptions as the professional game. Although, two things, although they don't get tested the way the professional game does. I mean, the Premier League, I think, are tested 2 or 3 times a week, the players, something like that. The juniors or the Tier 6 teams don't get tested. But it was, the phrase that's been used is we had to draw the line somewhere. Now, a big argument I had on Friday was the fact that you mentioned semi-professional as well, which is what the Sports Minister brought up. Now, 2 things. FIFA don't recognise semi-professional. FIFA, in their statutes, I think it's Rule 5 in their statutes, only recognise a status of professional players and amateur players. So there's no such thing as far as they're concerned as semi-professional. The other point I would make, whether you call that, it doesn't matter to me whether you call them semi-pro or no. The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of Tier 6 are signed on amateur registrations. I would say 70% of them on amateur registrations, probably 20 to 25% on non-contract registrations, which means they get paid, or they should only get paid up expenses, and the rest are professional. Now, I would doubt if there's any, certainly there wouldn't be very many, that the professional ones are earning a professional wage, if you follow what I mean. There probably will be a few in the top junior teams maybe earning decent money, but it tends to be, I guess, certainly going back in my day, try to work at pro rata. They're probably maybe getting 100 quid, 150 quid. So that's the reason that they're getting playing and we're not. They've got the professional exemption. I've said to both the SFA and to the Sports Minister, and in 5 or 6 emails that I've sent to the First Minister, albeit she's not responded to me, that it's not, you know, they work to the same protocols as we do in the amateur game. One of my big things on Friday rather with the Sports Minister, I said that I actually genuinely believe, clearly it's recreational football they call it. We know it as amateur, but it's recreational football. And I said to the Sports Minister on Friday that I honestly believe that the government believe that recreational football for us, or amateur football, is 20 or 30 guys going down a park throwing down jackets as goals. They don't. I don't believe they realise how structured our game is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, Mark, but that's the reasoning. I don't agree with it, but that's the reasoning.
What you're giving us there, Stuart, to be fair, is a good politician's answer. I appreciate those words aren't coming from you. It's what you've been told. But as I say, no, to be fair, that's what's happening. It's not me that decided that. Obviously. No, I know that. I'm saying, but it's a politician's answer that you've been given in past 20 years, and it maybe shows a kind of complete disconnect between the higher ends of football and the lower ends, because, as I say, I've been involved in every division in amateur football, and it's never been jackets for goalpost scenario. No, exactly. It's always been paperwork and ID numbers and addresses and done properly. You know, send your team lines in, etc. It's never been this kind of jumpers for goalposts, as you said, and that's again, that's why I wanted John, Stuart, because, as I say, right, Charlie spoke earlier about caged animals. We've got about 300 amateur players in Ayrshire that are caged animals just now because they're absolutely.
And is that like, sorry to interrupt you, Stuart, but has that come up in conversation with, like, obviously, like, a lot of players I've spoken to regarding this are worried about the effect on their mental health with not playing football, because I meant that football in a lot of people's eyes, I'm sure Mark, all the boys will agree with me in this, that it is an escape for them. It takes them away from their jobs, it gives them that, their hobby such, to give them that kind of release from it, kind of everyday life. Has that kind of been mentioned in the kind of meetings with the kind of sports minister?
Well, the sports minister, for example, and other MSPs I've spoken to, I have personally brought up the point about the mental and physical well-being of not just the players. A prime example, and I'm sure you know this, my own team, we've got a guy who is 77 years of age, and he's been with our club since 2 years. It's been with since 1985, 2 years after we started. Now, the only thing he's got in terms of leisure out with home and things like that is his football.
Yeah.
So it's having an effect on him. It's an effect on me. I'm not 77 yet, but you know, I'm getting there, and it's got an effect on everybody that's involved in the game, not just the players. So yes, that has been mentioned, and the other thing I've brought up is I understand, or we as the SAFA understand, that there's 60,000 plus died in UK through COVID-19 and over 1.5 million worldwide. But there seems to be a wee adage, for example, I can't go to my granny tryst, but if I go to a junior football park and take her into the dressing room, I can sit and talk to her. There's absolutely no logic in that.
Yeah.
And I have mentioned that, and I continue to mention it. You know, we're now talking about dressing rooms being able to be used. Now, for me, at this point in time, that's crazy. As I pointed out yesterday and Friday, there is far more danger of transmission. The guys, whether it's 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever, there's far more danger of transmission in a dressing room than there is out playing a game. And we all know, we've all been there with the best will in the world. When you say there's only 5 to go into a dressing room at a time, somebody will say, can we not just squeeze 6 in? Aye, okay, on you go. And things like that. So that's, and I'm sure that's happening already. I don't have any, you know, out with the amateur game, obviously. So I think it's a big problem, you know, that in itself. So what we've put across, the latest meeting we had was, we will, if the amateurs can get playing, bearing in mind, you know, our governing body is the SFA, so they've got control over what we can and cannot do. As Mark mentioned earlier, there's lots of protocols there that we've got to deal with. We've said we'll, in the shorter term, we'll swap the dressing rooms for being allowed to play the game. I would like to have the dressing rooms, but we're realistic. As I say, there's a lot of people died because of this thing, and things are no normal. They're far from it. You know, okay, there's a vaccine rolling out now, hopefully, which might help. But the big thing for us, and I made the point to Ian Maxwell as well, that this SFA are our governing body, and they don't seem to have been very vocal in terms of supporting the amateur game. And I made that point quite strongly. They say they've got a plan, they're putting a plan together. I don't know what it is exactly yet, and what I do know, I couldn't really give you at the moment. It wouldn't be right, because it's, you know, but hopefully they follow through in that. And the same can be said of the sports minister. He made lots of notes of what I said about jackets for gold, about dressing rooms, about, you know, we're allowed to go and do social distance training. Well, aye, that's fine. It gets us out. But you've all been there. It's not the same. It's not the same. You know, kicking a ball back and forth, it's not the same as getting together. And Jason Leach has said on numerous occasions, which is another point I keep bringing up, is that outdoor sports is probably the safest area in terms of transmission that there is in this COVID-19 year.
See, just as well, like I just feel like this will be the kind of last question I'll ask, and I'll kind of pass it over to the boys. But see, like the kind of thing I thought about it was like, see, obviously, like with amateur football, a lot of it's played on like kind of public parks. Is that an issue? Like why kind of there's no football because they can't really be controlled who would come to the games and kind of things like that. Is that issue being kind of discussed as well?
No, because we're getting to the stage where at the moment we've got a red and an amber zone, which you've probably heard about. The red zones, the pitch where the teams are in the amber zones for committee substitutes. I'm now talking. There's two things to answer that, Scott. We're now looking at another zone, which I think they're going to call the green zone or the yellow zone. I don't know. I'm colourblind. Where they'll allow some supporters there at a distance. Yeah. Part of the reason for that is in the youth game, kids are supposed to be there playing and parents are not supposed to be there. And a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago, something happened to one of the kids, and before his parent came rushing down, the wee boy had to go to hospital or whatever. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but so they're talking about that. The other thing is, and another big point I brought up with the SFA, is some of the junior teams. A prime example was 3 weeks ago, I think it was, Ashfield Juniors played, I don't know if you know, they're north of Glasgow, played SPL Grade Thistle at Glasgow Green, which is a public park, which is more known as an amateur inverted commas park. Also, Wisha Juniors played somebody, I can't remember who it was, at Wisha High School or Wisha Sports Centre. So the public park thing's nothing to do with it. And to be fair, that's never been brought up. With. So clearly that's not really an issue as far as they're concerned. You know. Okay.
Wilson, you want to add? And I'll bring obviously Shankers and Charlie in this.
For the guys that will tune in and watch and listen in for you guys, and Stuart's into a wee bit more detail there. What was happening was at Stuarton was you would drive to the sports centre in Stuarton and there'd be two members of the committee. One member of the committee would come round with sanitizer, okay? And then we'd all have to queue 2 metres apart to get up the hill to get onto the Astro. Yep. A local boys club team would come off the Astro. We'd have to then walk round the Astro, behind the goal, all the way till across the halfway line onto our side of the pitch. Okay? At the end, there's another gate. So you go out that gate, you stand at your car, you take your kit off, you put it in a bag that one of the committee's got in the boot of his car. He doesn't touch it. You just put it all in there, okay? And then get your shorts and T-shirts. So there was no showers, no changing rooms. Can be soaking wet, whatever it is. Now, I'm led to believe, from speaking to other guys at other clubs, that this is happening at other clubs. So all the precautions possible, and I'm sure there's guys that are probably committee members, volunteers, that are putting their own money in to buy sanitizer and things to make sure that this. Now, we played a few pre-season, as we thought it was going to be pre-season friendly games, and you know there was no shaking of hands. The referee came over, said thanks. We spoke to the guys passing. They had to go off first, then we had to go off. So all precautions that were put in place, I would think. In fact, I'm just going to say 100% of amateur teams are doing. And for it still not to be competitive in games played it's bizarre. It is bizarre.
And I'll tell you another quick thing. See, the protocols you're talking about, Mark, that are in place, that the SAFA have put in place. You also didn't mention every amateur club must have a COVID officer. Yeah. They can't play games without a COVID officer. But what I was going to say, the protocol that we drew up with the help of the SFA and with Sports Scotland, actually the junior clubs, and I use this term loosely, stole our protocols. They didn't have any protocols. They took our protocols, which was another one of the big arguments I had. discussions I had with the SFA and the sports minister, they're working to our protocols, but we can't get using them because we're not allowed to play. But Mark's 100% right in terms of clubs, COVID officers, sanitisers, can't change in the dressing rooms, can't shower, and I understand that part. I really can, as I said earlier. But there's so many other things where amateur clubs are sticking by these protocols. Yet, if you're in level 3 or level 4, you can't play. I should make a point because I notice people say on Twitter, we're not allowed to play amateur football. That's not strictly true. In tiers 3 and 4, we're not allowed to play. In tiers 2 and 1, we can play. But the vast majority of amateur clubs are currently on tiers 3 and 4. And what we've been trying to get at is we should all be allowed to play in tier 3. Tier 4 is maybe a different argument, although we did say if they're going to shut down amateurs for playing in tier 4, then everybody else other than the professionals, the Premiership should be shut down as well, because the same problems arise, in terms of COVID. But yes, Mark's right. The protocols are all in place. We've had umpteen meetings with league secretaries, with clubs. We've sent out so much. I mean, to be honest, the amount of documentation is unbelievable. And going on to the changing facilities, if we're going to do that, I'll be honest, we've sent out stuff to the clubs, and most of the clubs will look at it and say, no chance. It's, you need to be a Philadelphia lawyer. Actually, Charlie might be able to fill one of the forms in, but apart from that, there's so much involved in it. But Mark's absolutely right. We're doing everything that the government's asking us to do, but they won't let us play football from tier 3 or above.
Mm-hmm. Charlie, I just want to bring you in on this as well. Is there anything you kind of want to ask Stuart or add anything to the situation as well? Like, how are you kind of reading into it?
I think everybody's championed their association, their football, as you have rightly said, professional and recreation, and then it seems as if they've made this on the science that above 18, then there's a bigger transmission of the virus in this vicinity. The facilities you mentioned with regards to there, and also the travelling to and from. A lot of amateurs guys would probably run 3 or 4 cars, and can everybody get to the games, etc., etc. But I suppose if you get your own kind of house in order, then in the tier 3 aspect of it and the tier 2 aspect of it, is it worth trialling? A wee while since I've been involved in the amateur game, but one of the things that we were talking in the professional game was they've had the sample crowds, they've had the test. Can they go to the tier 2 and the tier 3 regions and do a test and see if it does work, and then try and roll it out for there? Because amateurs is probably the biggest number of teams, number of players in Scotland. And Stuart, you'll probably be wondering, how can we get the season started? Or I take it your 2021 season will just become null and void.
Well, in most leagues, the 2021 season has just been suspended. It's just been called quits. Yeah. Like most of them, there's a couple of the leagues, Central Scottish, I think, amateur league. They tried to finish their season for last season, but they didn't have that many games still to play. Ayrshire's a different kettle of fish. For example, when it was called the Hall, we still had, I think it was 102 games to play across the league, so it just wasn't feasible for us to do that. But yeah, you're right. Maybe we actually touched on that with the sports minister, having some sort of trial period to see if it would work within amateur football. You're right, Charlie.
Shankers, just finally before we kind of move on, but is there kind of Ed? And obviously you're coming for the junior game, and you're kind of still training walking leg, although they're kind of competitive. kind of season for you, isn't he? Use on the playing, but I just want to kind of bring you in. Is like anything you kind of want to ask as well, or
I just want to share my opinion. And I think it was the same when the season ended because of COVID at the very start, and we were for like our level they were deciding the leagues through average games or whatever, and it kind of came to everybody had kind of agreed, and then it came to my local amateur team's Mauchline, so I was asking them kind of what was happening because they were top of their league and they weren't sure whether it was going to go nil and void or whatever. I wasn't sure if throughout the whole board, why does for the top of the Scottish game right through to the amateurs, is there no like one person who says like this is what's happening all throughout the game, or is every association got to make their own mind up or what?
I mean, crikey, at the professional game, there's two associations for starters, the SPFL and the SFA. No, in answer to your question, Mark, no, there isn't. The SFA and the SPFL between them decide on the professional game. Obviously, there was the Scottish Junior FA, well, there still is, but most of them, as you know, moved to the West of Scotland League, and before that, East of Scotland League. We've got the amateur, obviously the amateur FA, you've got the youth FA, etc., etc. I mean, one of the questions I've been asked often is why did the SAFA not just decide every league was by for last season? And the answer to that's quite simple. We don't have the remit to make that decision. We can suggest to leagues, if you like, or better still, we can support them if they decide the league's going to be at an end. But we can't tell them. We can tell them that the Scottish Cup and the local and the district cups are not getting played out of it, but we don't have the remit to be able to say to a league, unless they're breaking rules, of course, we can't say to them, you can't play. You know, while you're talking, Mark, I should mention all the stuff I've said about the juniors or West of Scotland or whatever. We're not suggesting for a minute that level should stop playing. You know, we're not here to have them pumped out, but we just think we should be able to play along at the same time.
I think everybody should play, or like no meaning I'm not saying like in the top end of Scottish football it should stop, but like at our level it's obviously very similar. Junior, amateur, whatever title you want to get, everybody's in agreement. It's all very similar. So at our level, I feel if we're allowed to play, everybody should be allowed to play. It's either everybody plays or nobody plays. It shouldn't be like split, like we play and the amateurs don't play. And see, just with the jumpers for goalposts and that kind of thing, the Scottish Amateur Cup final is held at the National Stadium. So, like,
yeah, exactly,
yeah, like that kind of says a lot for me. They obviously hold the game in high regard if that final is at that stadium, so they should know what it means to everybody at that level. That's kind of all I've got to say. It should be everybody plays or nobody. It's a wee bit of a farce, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So just before we kind of finish up, Stuart, I just want to kind of ask one last thing. Like, where are you kind of now? Like, when's the next kind of meeting, and when can we expect the next bit of news to come about if the Scottish amateurs are going to be able to start again?
Well, a couple of things. I'm hoping to hear back for the SFA within the next week or so to see what the plan is that they're intending putting forward to the government. As far as the government's concerned, obviously there's an announcement on Tuesday as regards to the levels that are going to be changed. But on top of that, I'm hoping to hear back to the Sports Minister that he's had a discussion with First Minister and all the clinicians, etc. Hopefully he'll come back to us. I did feel, as I said earlier, that he listened to what we were saying, as opposed to quite a few of the previous MSPs we'd spoken to. So I'm hopeful we'll get something back. If I'm honest, we'll not get, in my opinion, in Tier 3 and Tier 4 you'll not get kicked in the ball anyway, in my opinion. Tier 3 we might be allowed back, but it'll not be after the new year, that's for sure. hope I'm wrong in that, but I'd be surprised if it was, and it could be middle of January into February, to be honest with you. But I can't say that for certain because I don't honestly know. But as I say, I feel the meeting we had last week was probably the best meeting we've had in terms of any positivity.
But we can't thank you enough for your honesty and agreeing to come on and share with us information. It's been greatly appreciated, and we're just hoping we can get some good news in the near future. Just lastly with Wilson as well, I'm sure you'll share your thoughts.
Definitely, it's great to have you on, Stuart. I just think these kind of platforms, it now opens up to millions of listeners. They now see the situation, because obviously I know loads of guys in the amateur game, so they'll tune in and just say, right, let's see where Stuart Urquhart is, because in Twitter, it's a great platform, of course it is, but just to see the ins and outs and see how hard you're working to get us back, because I'm sure the flag probably stops at your door for all these things as if it's your fault, but it'll be great for the guys to see how the work you're putting in to get us back out there.
Mm-hmm. That goes with the territory, Mark, but having said that, I'm as keen as anybody else. Obviously, I run a club as well, so I'm as keen as anybody else to get everybody back playing. We've got 35,000 players or something like that, 35,000 members, throughout the length and breadth of Scotland, and I'll continue, and the executive committee of the SAFA, despite the fact they think as us as it suits or the Blazers or whatever. I can assure you, it's probably been harder work this year because of not being able to play than it normally is. So I can assure everybody out there that we will continue to try and get the game back playing again. We're as desperate as everybody else to have it back again.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Stuart. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
Pleasure.
Pleasure. Well, obviously we had a great chat there with Stuart, and we'll move on to what's been happening over the weekend. We'll just run through quickly the results, and we'll ask everybody the result and talking point of the weekend. Hamilton won 1-0 against Kilmarnock. Ross Callaghan with the penalty. Livingston won 2-0 against Dundee United. Pittman and Bartley with the goals. Hibs got an away win at Motherwell, 3-0. Boyle, Doidge and McGinn with the goals. St Mirren and Aberdeen drew 1 each. It was McGrath and Hayes. Rangers today won 4-0 away to Ross County. Roof Tavernier was an own goal in the end of 4. And finally at Parkhead, Celtic drew 1 each with St Johnstone. Now, I just want to start. I'll start off with Shankers here. Shankers, what was your result and talking point for the weekend?
Well, I was watching both games today. Rangers game first of all, Dingwall. Another kind of convincing game without them playing exceptional football. Just kind of ruthless almost. Another few changes. Stephen Davis, the middle part of the standard, 35 years of age, and he could look as if he could play on for a good few years yet at this level. It was tremendous. Him finning passes. It must be great to be a forward player when he's in the middle of the park. He can thread that eye and needle pass for you. He set up Tavernier, who played a ball for Roof's first goal, and then after that, once you get one goal, it's almost as if they just kind of just start controlling the game, and that was all it really looked like it was going to happen. Ross County missed a good chance at 2-0 to come back into the game. If they score that, maybe you could see maybe something happening, but other than that, it was another convincing win. It was nothing like the Ross County team that we seen last week at Parkhead, funnily enough, but another convincing win for Rangers.
Rangers are doing what they need to do. They're winning games and scoring goals. But we'll move on to Wilson, which is a big talking point for the weekend.
Well, I think Callum Davidson at St Johnstone should be sacked if he can't go there and get a win like everybody else in Scottish football. So I hope Callum's in the job centre tomorrow. A disgrace going there and not winning. No, I was quite glad that Charlie was on tonight, and we'll probably get into more detail later. Just quickly, Charlie, the DiCamona's challenge yesterday, is that a straight red? Yeah.
2-footed challenge, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't matter whether you go for the ball or no get the ball or anything. A 2-footed challenge off the ground is an automatic red card. Lose control, and yeah.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because I think the last 3 sendings off Kilmarnock have had, you know, at the time when I've been watching the games, I've agreed that they've all been red cards. I know one went to appeal. Even at that, I thought it was a red card at the time, you know, and again, trial by sports, saying that they shouldn't possibly do, however. And as I say, Charlie used to correct me. I used to go home seething at decisions, and then I'd speak to Charlie on a Monday morning at work, and then that'd be me fined by 9 o'clock because he would say that as a red card or that as a yellow, you know, explanation. But again, a worrying result for Kilmarnock. I think a worrying result for Dundee United as well.
Yeah.
And I hope Ross County get relegated.
Dundee United had loads of players out for COVID, so it's slightly not understandable, but you can see why they have got to be.
Mm-hmm. See, just before that, we can ask you, Charlie. I just want to touch on mine. Hibs get a 3-0 win against Motherwell on Saturday as well, but Motherwell had a disallowed goal. Like, what did you kind of think that goal, sure?
I didn't see a free kick in there. When you look at it, the ball's played high. There's more height than distance in the ball, and the Motherwell guy has timed his jump, and he's one of the ones. He's up early, he wins it, and he comes down. He's actually coming down into the Hibs player, and you don't see any bent arm straightening. He's up there, the arm stayed bent all the time. I'm looking for the free kick. I can't see it. I thought it was a good goal. And again, 1-0. You guys, you have played the game. Yes, a goal can change. A goal can change the temperament of games. And that would have gave Motherwell a wee bit, because they had a bit of the game with regards to there. So going back to your original, I didn't see a free kick in that.
Mm-hmm. It was a good result for Hibs as well, and obviously 3-0 kind of puts them with now looking at it, not far. I think they're only 2 points behind Celtic. I know Celtic the game's in hand, but you're looking at Hibs and thinking they're probably in the second best form in the league right now. But I just want to touch on, Charlie, just what was your kind of talking point and takeaway for the weekend's results?
It's one of these old cliches, guys, and I know you mentioned Dundee United with their COVID problems, but they still fielded a relatively strong team. But new manager at Livingston, there's a bounce. There's a team who's had to change. Livingston played the long ball up to Lyndon Dykes all the time, and that's where they get the success. And to be fairness to Gary Holt, that was his type of play. Get up and then get the midfield supporting the second ball. Now that they've had to change. And you see a wee bit with Aberdeen. Aberdeen started off playing through the midfield, but they lost their midfielders, and then they went long to Cosgrove, and they couldn't match that. So a wee kind of praise to Livingston there for going out and starting to play football, play through the lines, and a 2-0 against Dundee United is a good result for them. So you might actually start to see them going in a wee run.
Definitely. Wilson, before we move on to other things in the show, we're having this weekly hang now, aren't we? Where we're just wondering, today Celtic again 1-1 draw at home to St Johnstone. You're my touch point with this because we talk, obviously me, you and Shankers, we talk on a regular basis during the games and things like that. What's going to happen here? It can't carry on here, surely.
As I've been saying since the Old Firm game, nothing is going to change with those players until Neil Lennon is out the door. Now, what's happened here is when that situation arose at the Old Firm game in terms of not the result, the performance, questions had to be asked then. And now it might be a bit, and Celtic have never been a trigger happy, replace the manager. But everybody could see there was issues. And what they've done now is they've let it fester, they've let it all, the Europa League doesn't matter, domestic, it doesn't matter, it's only a League Cup, we're all about 10 in a row. And now 10 in a row is gone. It's gone. 13 points means that Celtic have to win their 2 games in hand, plus possibly beat Rangers 3 times. Right? Now, that's fantasy stuff now. And as I say, I don't get, and I can understand the threat, I don't condone the Celtic fans, what went on last week or from what I've seen tonight so far. But Dermot Desmond, Peter Law, Neil Lennon, John Kennedy, all these guys, something needs to change. And if it's just about egos, Peter Law won his battle of egos with Brendan Rodgers of the whole John McGinn scenario. So Brendan Rodgers up and left sticks, okay, and look where they are from when he left to where they are now. As I said, they'll be absolutely lucky, and you just point on it there. I think Hibs is one of Celtic's games in hand. Mm-hmm. And what is happening, and while it's festering just now, that Celtic are falling down that league and going back to where they were in the 90s, because it's a complete and utter mismanagement. Now, yes, the players have to carry the can, but players don't get sacked. Managers get sacked. And this was Celtic's last chance. I don't even think it was the last chance. I think the last chance was a few weeks ago when they drew with Aberdeen. They had to get rid of the manager and bring someone fresh in. While there was that chance, 2 games in hand, if we beat Aberdeen, then it's only 10 points, then it's 24 points, whatever it is, right? No manager in their right mind would touch that Celtic job now with a barge pole, because all that it's going to do, if it's a former player or Celtic man, as you like to, pontificate, is they going to touch that job now? Because Neil Lennon's legacy of 5 titles as a player, 5 titles as a manager, part of the Seville team, that is gone. That is absolutely gone now. Neil Lennon is now the manager that didn't win 10 in a row with more resources than any other manager in that league. But again, and I just want to touch this, and please, Mark, I think it's a wee bit distasteful, all this reaction and what's been on at Celtic. But the biggest thing is, it's how good Rangers are. It's not about the shambles at Celtic. Yeah. It's how good Rangers are and have been.
Mm-hmm. Shankers as well. Like, obviously, we'll bring Charlie on this as well. Like you said today about Rangers, how controlling they were. Like Celtic, it doesn't look as if Neil Lennon's gonna go. If the decision was made, it was surely going to be made last Sunday. What do you see Rangers losing 5 games for now at the end of the season? Because I don't.
On current form and the way they're playing now, I can't see where the next defeat is coming with. Never mind 5. So I know Mark said they're 13 points. A lot of Rangers fans have seen they're almost taking it as if it's just the 7 points and just taking it as if Celtic's going to win their 2 games in hand and then it's 7. So is there no disappointed if they do win them? So, but I didn't know Hibs was one of the games in hand. You can't see where Rangers' next defeat is, and you can't see where Celtic's next win is coming from. It's obviously not a good situation for Celtic Lennon, but he's been given a vote of confidence, so they can't give him the vote of confidence during the week and then sack him at the weekend. You know what I mean? He's obviously maybe, I don't know what happens in any types of meetings, whether they go, right, you've got to then see how you got on till then and whatever, but if they're going to do anything, they need to do it before January, because our new manager coming in is want to get a few players in, let a few go. Maybe they can either need to do it almost now or just they need to keep them kind of hang. They're not going to.
This is what I was saying 2 weeks ago. January's too late, because no manager and no player is going to want to come to Celtic in the 10th season of the 10 in a row and be part of a disaster, because that's what it is. So therefore, You've done yourself out of getting a good manager. And as I say, I explained again, I'm getting back to the last few weeks, you went from Brendan Rodgers to Neil Lennon. That's unfortunate now, the level Celtic are going to be at. They're going to get a Henrik Larsson, untried and untested, Stillian Petrov, untried and untested, because that's now their market. Whereas at Brendan Rodgers, all we needed was another man on that level to guarantee the 10 the next season, put their stock up, okay, and win it. And then your stock's so high because you've been part of this 10 in a row. And as I say, I keep saying, I have massive, massive fears for Celtic and Scottish football after this season. Because I genuinely believe, and I'm not just saying this because Rangers, I actually think if in fact, I'm going to say, actually, when Gerrard wins the treble this year, I think he may walk.
Because, well, what else can you do? Like,
exactly.
If you know what I mean.
think if he's to go, now don't get me wrong, I strongly believe that Rangers are just a bigger club as Liverpool, if not bigger in some areas. And what I would suggest was, he's done it in football, Scottish football. Then I think he may have a stepping stone within the Premiership. Just for example, a Leeds, a Newcastle, someone of that ilk, before he's put into the big seat that he wants. And as I say, I wouldn't blame him for walking away, but his stock is massive when he wins the treble. if he stays on another season, Celtic throw money at somebody else and then he loses, it does his own chances. And I think he'll walk away with the best wishes of the Rangers fans.
Charlie,
I agree. I think see if they go and do win the league, not even the treble. If they just win the league and stop Celtic's 10 in a row and win their 55th title, I don't think anybody would blame him for walking away, because he came here to do a 3-year contract or whatever. The ultimate goal at the end of it was to win your next trophy, obviously, but the bigger picture was stop 10 in a row. I don't care what anybody says, that has got to be spoken about it at some point. So that if he does stop that, I think he would walk away a hero. You know what I mean? So, and as you said, there's no point in going and winning that, carrying on, and maybe no winning it the next year, and then he's no looked at as a great manager kind of thing. So I wouldn't blame him personally. I don't think a lot of folk would blame him if he was to win the league and then walk away. But it's only December, so I'm not really want to be talking about.
Sorry, I know Charlie's got an opinion on this, but someone made a point to me today via text saying that could Brendan Rodgers see the writing on the wall at board level and then think, I'm out of here.
Let's go back to just before. Obviously, Charlie, I want to kind of bring you in on this as well, but John McGinn was the writing on the wall, because we heard then Brendan Rodgers wasn't happy, left that season, and after that the recruitment has been very, very poor, and it needs to be called into fact. Now, I just want to bring up 2 points. You've brought up Greg Taylor-Wilson in the past, David Turnbull today. I thought they were both very good when they come on today. I thought they were. That's 2 players who aren't getting a chance. A lot of money has been spent on them. Are they getting wasted at Celtic?
Yes, but this isn't something new that's happened. Celtic and Rangers, prior to obviously what happened, did sign the best players from Aberdeen or Motherwell or Hibs and that, and then they go in, they disappear, and Turnbull was one of these guys. I mean, I wasn't a massive fan. I thought a good player and all that, but I listen to Off the Ball most Saturdays, and Tam Cowan absolutely raves about this guy, saying that Celtic's a stepping stone. This guy's so good. And I know he's a Motherwell fan, and I'm thinking, I don't see it, but nobody sees it, because if he's that good, why is he not getting a game? Now, again, and Mark touched on it this week on our WhatsApp, about Scott Brown played again today.
Mm-hmm.
And Thursday night in a meaningless game.
I couldn't believe he played on Thursday night.
And I'm still waiting for him to complete a pass or do something. And it's, as I say, there's something rotten at Celtic right through the club. And as I say, they're in big, big danger of letting that be a massive problem, because I'll tell you this right now, Celtic will not sell 60,000 season tickets next year.
No chance.
They'll be giving them away to the local school kids. That's how bad it will be.
Definitely. Charlie, what's your kind of thoughts on the whole situation at Celtic? Like, obviously, it's kind of the talking point everywhere now. But like, do you think Neil Lennon's kind of ran his race at Celtic?
I think sometimes you've got to take emotions out of it, but I think he'll get to the cup final. I think Peter Lawwell will kind of give him, can we say, the chance of the cup final to do the quadruple treble with regards to that side. And if you listen to Neil in his interviews, he's trying everything. And this is sometimes that you look at managers, and as Mark said, I've never seen a football player sacked yet, but John Kennedy, I know John reasonably well, a very good defender, but Celtic are leaking goals at the back. And you're saying to yourself from that point, would it not be that he could be able to coach defending? If you go to the other side, Mark, Alec McLeish at Rangers. Alec McLeish was a great defender, but they were leaking goals. And all of a sudden, and I've got an avid interest in the Scotland women's game. The last Scotland games, they've not been scoring the goals. Andy Thompson was a phenomenal striker down at Queen of the South. So, but going back to the topic aspect, I think Neil will get to the cup final, and he'll go. You look at a period of time, you look at the teams you're playing, and you look at how many points and get the results. And probably everybody was sitting saying that Celtic would have beat St Johnstone today and kickstart the run of the 3 or 4 results and gets it back. But are they suffering? Are they the biggest club suffering from no fans?
Oh,
I think they're lucky that there's no fans in there, to be honest.
if there was fans in there, they'd have been changed after the Old Firm game, in my opinion.
But we're touching this as well. And there's a guy. Obviously, I listened to the phone in after I come home from work and heard Lennon's interview. And again, it's the same old. But somebody made a really interesting point. How many managers have won 2 games out of the last 12, even at amateur, even at
any level,
junior level? 2 games in 12 for a club like Celtic. Ferencváros we go back to. The players were the problem then. The players didn't want to be there. Nothing's changed since then. Nothing has changed since then. The performances have been poor. Shane Duffy, £2 million loan fee, massive wages, not even on the bench today. You've got players like Klimala, back at the goalkeeper. Where do you start with the goalkeeper? We've heard in this week David Marshall didn't offer David Marshall what he wanted. David Marshall.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. It's rotten. If Peter Law is signing the players, that's wrong. If it's this guy Nicky Hammond or whoever, he's invisible, is signing these players, because these players are absolute duds. These guys are absolutely a disgrace to the Celtic jersey. So that for me, and I've had a problem with this all along. If you are the manager, you get someone in you trust. Now I'm sure from possibly even the Martin O'Neill era, it was John Park. Is that right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Right. As soon as he left, it was all these different folk. Now Martin O'Neill would say to John Park, "I need a right back." He would go and scout 4 or 5 right backs, report back. Martin O'Neill would decide what right back he's going to sign. Mm-hmm. I think Neil Lennon's turning up there, and Peter Law's going, "Oh, this is Barkas. This is a Greek goalie who signed for £5 million," and Neil Lennon's thinking.
But is there no a coaching problem there as well, though? Because if you were to give Neil Lennon the option of Gavin Strachan or Gary Parker, I know he's not choosing Gavin 100%. Strachan. So I think is the club making the decisions for Neil Lennon? As we touched on it, Marco went into air with getting told who he was getting, and has Neil Lennon been told the same?
Well, I think so. And again, this is a guy that's been sacked from Bolton and Hibs, and he's got in there and basically been told, and he did, don't get me wrong, he done his job, what was left, but that team was still flying from the Rodgers era. Absolutely flying. It's impossible to look. You could have stuck me and Shankers in. We'd have won those couple of trophies with 6 games to go or whatever.
Right? I would have found a way to get them beat.
As I say, Gary Holt's record was better than Lennon's in the last 12 games, but he thought, I'm not getting any more of these players, I need to resign. Alex Dyer's record's better, and I think, unfortunately, Alex is going to be in a shaky peg because, well, he'll win next week because they're away at Celtic next week, so he'll pick up a win next week. But this is a results-based business, right. And I'm quite sure if Steven Gerrard won 2 games out of his next 12, the Rangers fans would want him out.
Mm-hmm. But we're touching on, and Charlie made the point about the cup final, and if Neil Lennon does get to the cup final, see if
that's a win, and you've lost a cup final to a first division team.
Right, but let's look at it another way and say that Celtic do win 3-0. Are we going to get Scott Brown holding the trophy, Neil Lennon holding the trophy, celebrating as if they've done the quadruple treble when this has been?
Everything's all right.
That's what I think the Celtic fans are going to will make the Celtic fans feel worse about this situation. That's what the board will be happy.
They had to sack him in the showers after he gave him the job in the showers the first time.
But it's again, I don't see it changing because as we say, Rangers play Celtic the 2nd of January. Celtic go in that form and play the performance they've done in the last 12 games.
A cricket score.
There's only one winner, and that's it. That is the league. That is the league over.
Scott, the league was over the first Old Firm game. The performance and attitude of the players showed you that they weren't wanting to be there, or they weren't wanting someone to be there. Now, Celtic can go out and sack Neil Lennon and bring in Pep Guardiola or Jose Mourinho. The whole backroom staff is part of Neil Lennon's thing. Now, if John Kennedy's going into his work every morning and saying, I've got nothing to do today, then there's a massive, massive problem if Neil Lennon's not listening to his coaching staff or his assistants.
Definitely.
So here, if you turn around and say, right, we'll get Pep Guardiola in, is John Kennedy going to be a better coach under Pep Guardiola or Neil Lennon? He's going to be the same. And as I say, horrendous what happened to the fella, but he's part of it. He needs to go as well. The whole place needs cleared out.
But we're definitely going to touch on that later on, and we'll move on to our special guest, Charlie Richmond. Charlie, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks very much for joining us.
Magic. I'll just let you to free blether about that.
Obviously, an SPL referee between 2002 and 2012. Obviously, 10 years at the top game. But where did it all start? Like, what made you kind of want to get into refereeing?
Well, like every boy, you play football, and then you realise that you don't have the potential to go any further. When I was 13, 14, my mind was made up that I wanted to join the Royal Navy. And I went away, and I come back probably about, must have been about 90. I joined in 85, so I come back in 90, and I started playing squash at Walloch Mile Golf Club. And one of the guys played squash with me was on the list, and he says, I remember you playing football, how do you fancy being a referee? How do you fancy taking up refereeing? I never thought anything of it, and I went along to the classes, and at that time it was at the Old Grange Academy. And I went and sat down with a guy who's obviously passed away now. Is a guy called Davy McKee. And Davy and myself were tall, slim, and built the same stature. We looked the same. And the amount of times in amateur football, we had you last week, and it wasn't. And then I took the exam in December '91, passed it, and it's full cliche. You never look back for there. My very first game was Auchinleck Academy against Kilmarnock Academy, and a wee boy hit a shot for 22 yards. And at that time, they didn't have any nets, and the ball went whizzing by, and I'm sitting there, did that go by or did that go in? And the wee boy shouted, well, what a goal! And I thought, goal. and that was my kick-off to refereeing.
Brilliant. But what are kind of memories you've got of kind of refereeing, obviously at the top level? Like, what was the kind of highlights of your time at the top level?
Oh God, things there's too many, Scott. Ken, you can talk about being involved in juniors. I loved the junior game. I absolutely loved the junior game. I was born and bred in Auchinleck, and I'm no feared to say I'm a Talbot supporter, and I love that. I would have loved to have been considered for the Junior Cup final, but never got that. But then when you go into senior games, when you get into seniors, running out as you guys at Celtic Park and Ibrox, and been involved in the Scottish Cup final, as Scottish League Cup final was great day as well. The cup final I was involved in was in 2006 with Gretna. There was a lot of hype about that. It was a great day. We went to penalties. It was just everything about it was just surreal. And that was my birthday. That was played on the 13th of May 2006, which was my birthday. But then, and lucky enough to go on the international list and go across and do. At that time, it was UEFA Cup matches and Champions League matches, and then considered for Euro qualifiers and World Cup qualifiers, and then getting invitations to go to various different countries to referee, Qatar, Tunisia, Hong Kong. So all that, it all rates up there. With players on the park who you looked at and you thought to yourself, wow. I remember I done an under-21 Spain versus Germany under-21 match, and the names on the team sheet was unbelievable. And in the flight back from Madrid to London, I was sitting with Cesc Fabregas and his agent said, watch this boy go. He'll take over Patrick Vieira and watch him go. And true to his word, for there. So phenomenal. Cesc Fabregas and Michael Ballack and players like that. So. And it's a cliche, but sometimes a wee boy from Auchinleck who used to go to his school with his backside hanging out his trousers, but they had good pockets. They had good pockets, so he used them. And going to these places was phenomenal.
Brilliant. Wilson, obviously you worked with Charlie for a few years. Just what was your memories of Charlie as a referee and obviously as a pal?
Well, as I say, I saw him referee several times before I worked with him, so he's probably heard me before he saw me. But as I say, there was a lot of guys that went to the football in our office at work, and when Charlie would come in on a Monday, it would be, right, Charlie, what about this? And he would put it in simplistic terms that a fan understands why the decision was given or was not given. And as I said, we've kind of touched on, this is why I know Charlie's been in the past, and myself, a big advocates of get these referees out there and explain, to the fans, this is why a decision was given. Now, we touched on earlier in the show, Kilmarnock have had 3 players sent off in 4 games or whatever it is, 2 by the same referee and 1 on Saturday there. Now, in watching them, I think all 3 are sendings off. But again, because you're a Kelly fan, you follow the social media pages, the Kelly fans are up in arms about the 3 of them, and I'm going, they're sendings off for me. And it would, as I say, on a Monday, you would speak to Charlie, lay it on the line, that's why the decision's made, and you would go to class happy. Or accepting anyway, maybe not happy, but accepting. And Charlie, I think that's needed in the media.
What do you kind of feel about that, Charlie? Like, obviously, would you have supported that back in the day when you were refereeing at the top level?
100%. Somebody contacted me on a Sunday night, about a decision I had made on the Saturday, or the Monday night decision I had made on a Sunday. I would quite happily give my explanation of why I gave that decision and take it for there. Now, as a referee, you don't expect everybody to agree with you, but you expect them to. You get a bit of respect for coming out and giving the decision why you can. There was a trial. There was in Australia, and they mic'd up the referee and broadcasted it live. And one of the next things was to get a head cam on a referee to show what he would see and things like that. But sometimes you can go OTT. But if you show video clips from various different angles and ask the referee to explain, then you'll see things that will happen from an angle that he will never ever get. One of those angles will always be behind the goals. A referee will never get a behind the goal sight unless he has caught on the goal line and it's a quick transition of play with regards to there. But yeah, we need to educate. We need to educate. We talk about a lot of things about education, and the fans are the biggest lifeblood of football. And if you can educate them how the laws of the games are, then I'm not saying it makes your job easier, but it helps you get your point across.
Definitely. Well, obviously in the past few years as well, obviously it was after you stopped refereeing. I'll touch on why you stopped refereeing just in a second, but how do you feel about the kind of video assistant referee? Do you think it is too technical just now, or is there improvements to be made with that?
No, what they need to do is they need to set that everybody needs to work to the same criteria. You need to work with what FIFA and UEFA are saying. And because you're a nation of UEFA, you can't go off in your tangent and decide what you want to use it and do it with regards to there. VAR will come. VAR will stay. That's the way that the governing body thinks the best way forward. What you have to do is to do what the laws of the game do, and that is define universally what it is meant to be there for. So VAR, I think England are just doing it too. They're effectively re-refereeing the game sometimes, but it's there to identify in the 4 criteria a clear and obvious refereeing error. It's got to be a clear and obvious refereeing error. In Scotland, it's all about finances, but can we bring it in slow? We don't need to spend thousands and bring it in with all bells and whistles. Can we bring it in slow? And you think about it, the majority of the big games, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you've either got BT Sport, Sky, Premier Sports. They cover the game. So an official who's just retired from the official list, still involved in the game, can sit in the lorry, can sit in the truck, and he's got his screens. He can relay that information to the on-field referee, the assistant referee, and the 4th official. And that can be communicated. and then the ultimate decision stays with the on-field referee.
Yeah.
But for the VAR guy to come in, he can't come in an opinion decision, because that's what football's all about sometimes. You must come in clear and obvious refereeing errors.
Wilson, Shankers, if you get kind of questions you want to ask Charlie, I know we're talking during the week and you did, like, what we got?
I would like to give him some quick fire questions, and he's got to give us the first answer that comes to his mind.
Right.
Now, again, you can't hang anyone out here because you've retired, and they've probably all retired as well, but worst manager experience?
Gus McPherson.
Worst player?
Lee Mako.
Best manager to deal with?
Jimmy Calderwood.
Worst mistake in a high-profile game?
St Johnstone, St Mirren. Fourth official told me it was a handball, shouldn't have took it. Walked about, like, as the quotes in the newspaper said, he had a bottle of Beck's and a kebab in his hand on a Saturday night. Stephen O'Donnell handballed it and kept St Mirren up. I knew it had a white sleeved hand. Couldn't have told you who it was. Fourth official hung me out to dry.
Who was he?
Can't tell you.
Are you hanging out?
Stevie McLean.
Yeah, that's it from me. As I say, I always think when you do a quick fire one, now surprising some of the names there, you know, because you would have expected
some of the names there.
Gus McPherson. Gus is a nice guy, but see, during the game, oh God, I remember I refereed St Mirren Celtic Scottish Cup quarter final, and I thought at the time Gary Caldwell would have got a cross and covered Stephen McManus, and I showed Stephen McManus a yellow card, and Gus at full time turned round and, "You've bottled it, Charlie, you've bottled it. McManus should have been off." And I turned round as a quick snipe to say, no, I had to keep him on so I could get a replay. And he went raging at me for there. So, Gus, myself and Gus. But if we sat down in the room, we'd probably got on no bother. Lee Mako was in your face all the time, and he'd one of these stupid squeaky voices. How's that not a foul? How's that not a foul? I remember doing a game at Tynecastle, Hearts Livingston, indirect free kick, and I'm standing there with my hand up, and Stuart Lovell cracks it right into the back of the net. Craig Gordon was the Hearts goalkeeper, stepped aside and let it go into the net. Goal kick. How's that a goal kick? Mako comes, how's that a goal? That's a goal, that's a goal. Learn the laws of the game, son. Away out the road. Just to be squeaky voices.
Well, I wish I could...
Again, we watch it as fans, and that, as I say, that's what we are. And we always assume, like the likes of Barry Ferguson would be a nightmare. But I think you're saying, was he in the same mould as Lee Mako? Because
Barry was a winner. Barry Ferguson was a winner.
Told me that when they played with Barry Ferguson was very rarely at the ref. He was at his own teammates.
Yeah.
But if you think you're watching the telly, he's having a go at the ref, he's actually having a go at his own teammates.
No, it surprised you the amount of times Barry Ferguson come into your face and question the decision or something like that. And obviously we've spoke about him earlier in the show as well, but surprisingly Neil Lennon as well, very rarely in your face, just getting on with it and things like that. So you're right, the people the fans who think are the worst culprits are no really. For that. And
see kind of why you stopped refereeing. Obviously, when we did a bit of research, we kind of looked into it and things like that. But what was your kind of perspective for when you stopped refereeing? Like, did you come to the decision yourself, or was it kind of forced on you?
I'll tell you. I'll give a bit of background with regards to the setup. 2008, 7-8 season, I thought I was refereeing well. I'd just done the semi-finals of the National Cups, and I thought I was in with a shout for the 2008 final, and I was doing well. And then the next season I got injured and I missed it, and then the following season I got dropped from the Premier League, and not one person came and told me. The full season of 2010-2011 I refereed in the Championship, the First Division, the Second Division, and not one person told me I was going to be in there all season. So when I found out from a good friend I then made the decision I was going to go. And my mother-in-law said, "No, Charlie, that's what they want you to do. They're trying to force your hand out. Can what to do? Get back into the Premier League and then go on your own terms." So 2011-2012 season, I get Motherwell Celtic, Hearts, and I went to Tynecastle, and that's when the referees were all mic'd up, and I didn't have a mic system. And the head of refereeing at the time phoned me and said, "Get a mic system. We've got I says, "I haven't got one. You get me one." And it just died for there. I'd done 3-4 Premier League games. And then on April, the 8th of April 2012, I woke up going to do Livingston Ross County. Ross County won, they get promoted. And Livingston was my first Premier League game. St Johnstone, Livingston, 2002. And I thought, good time to go. And I just announced on the Saturday night to everybody, that's me, my career's finished. My wife didn't ken at the time. I just made the decision. And I went to April because the grading meeting is in May.
Right.
And I knew Ayrshire wouldn't get 5 grade 1s. And therefore I left in April, and it hopefully gave Kevin Graham a chance to go to grade 1, which I'm glad it did. And Kevin was at grade 1. And I just thought to myself, I'm back in the Premier League, I'm away. I should have left a season earlier because I'd fell out of love with refereeing and the way I get treated.
And do you miss it now? Like, obviously, like,
Scott, I genuinely mean it. No, I genuinely mean I don't miss refereeing at all. And there's chapters in my life that I've come into it, and I'm busy doing other things. I'm obviously commenting and refereeing decisions, etc., etc. But no, I don't miss it.
Just a kind of last thing. I just want to ask Shankers as well. Obviously, you're familiar with Shankers, Talbot number 9. But like, do you remember a few years ago it was at a Sportsman's Dinner in Bolton? I'm talking about maybe 8 years ago, and you told me the story about you and Colin Montgomery's wife.
Aye.
Will you tell that? Are you all right to tell that?
I met her in the airport, and I went to her and I says, "Amia, is Colin actually as angry as he sees in the television?" and she says, and Kenny Clark was walking by me, and he's like, he says, "My God," he says, "What you doing, sir?" And I says, "I'm just asking with regards to there." But the other side of it, no, is just to get a funny story across about golfers.
Brilliant. That was a great story. I remember you telling me that was brilliant. But Shankers, obviously, did you ever talk to Charlie when you're at the Talbot games?
No, you just hear folks shouting that. You don't ken who it is. I don't know whether it's him. He stands behind the dugout, if I'm right. So you don't know. There's a kind of hardy band in there that are cheering for you, and someone maybe not cheering against you, but someone maybe got a few daft shouts. But you try and block that out when you're playing in the games, and that's all. Was really good. I was want to ask a point about refereeing. See how you said you just made the split decision off your own back, and that was you. See, like maybe a week or two later, did you ever think, "Oh no, kind of I've made the wrong decision"? Or you want to go back? No, was that just never looked back basically?
That was that. And the reason I went then, Shankers, was because it was the Easter weekend. Mm-hmm. The Easter weekend, and people will always say, "When did you give up refereeing?" It was Easter weekend. So it's easy. It was, and I just woke up. My pal at the time came down for Ross County, for Dingwall. He stayed in Evington. He was outside Evington, and he says, "Can we? Every match official gets 2 complimentary tickets." So he says, "Can we go up and use your tickets?" I said, "Aye, no bother." And they were up cheering on Ross County and that. And then I said to John Hughes in the dressing room, and John was the manager of Livingston at the time. And he says, "How are you getting on?" I says, "Fine, no bad, blah, blah." I says, "This is my last game, John." He says, "What?" I says, "This is my last game." "What, retiring through age or everything?" I says, "No, I've given up." And then wee Bobby Barr, remember wee Bobby Barr played with Livingston? Bobby. 75 minutes, there's a substitution getting made. And the Tannoy announcer And we'd just like to make a special mention that this is Charlie Richmond's last game, the referee. And we Bobby Barr turned round and he says, "You're effing joking, man. The decent guys like you are leaving and we've still got idiots like, and they're still referees." And that was when my pal found out that I was gearing up refereeing as well.
It's been an absolute pleasure to be on, Charlie. It's been great to talk to you. Again,
No bother.
Charlie will enjoy this. A good friend of mine is John McQuaid, who is the fitness coach for the SPL refs. And it didn't matter what game I was at the weekend. I would go on a Monday when I worked at the school, and John would say, "What game was it?" And I would say, "Oh, Kilmarnock Hearts." They say, "How was the ref?" And every single week I would just say, "Not fit enough." And John was he was about 6'7", Charlie.
Oh,
he used to teach me about that school. Not fit enough. And he used to actually take it quite personally, but he sends his best wishes as well, Charlie. I spoke to him last week.
Very good. But I remember Big John. Another thing as well, I get Shinsuke Nakamura, the Celtic player, took me right out at Tannadice. Snapped my ligaments. I was out for 13 weeks. I was out for 13 weeks. Aye. I'll tell you a wee funny story about it when we come back. I was out for 13 weeks. I went to John Callaghan. John got me back, the sports guy, got me back walking, got me back. And I went, and the next thing the SFA turned around and said, "You need to do a fitness test to get you back into refereeing." I says, "What? I'm the only referee that's ever done this." And John McQuaid took me at Barrhead. That's obviously where he worked at, Mark.
Yeah.
I worked at Barrhead Academy. I had to go up, I think it was a Thursday lunchtime or a Thursday evening, and I'd done the bleep test until John was happy that I was fit enough. And that was me signed off to do my game on the Saturday. So that was the Thursday to the Saturday. But I was out for 13 weeks, and this is amazing about Shinsuke could hardly speak English. He had an interpreter all the time. My first game back involving Celtic was Celtic Hearts. And after the game, he chapped the door and he came in and he apologised for taking, and I says, "It's nobody's fault." He says, what had actually happened was, I was working with a sports psychologist at the time, a guy called John Mathers from Stirling Uni, very good guy. And he was watching all my games. And he says, "Charlie, I had just turned down a penalty for Dundee United. Turns out it was a stonewall penalty I should have given it. I turned away and I was replaying the penalty in my mind." Mm-hmm. And John says, "If you hadn't been replaying that penalty and concentrating in the game, you'd have saw that Shinsuke fell over, stumbled in the ball, and you wouldn't have kept running in the same way." And he clattered right into me. And I just, my ankle's away. You know that way when you get up and you've just spongy feeling? I thought, oh, that's away. 9 Wells Hospital, X-ray, 13 weeks later. But Shinsuke came back into the dressing room and we had a blether. Now, the dressing room is full where there's the police, there's the referee observer, there's a security guy, and everybody, as soon as he left, everybody turned around and says, "What a guy, unbelievable." And I said, "Thanks very much, guys," but that was Shinsuke.
Brilliant. As I say, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's been...
No bother, guys. Thanks for the opportunity. And obviously wish you well in your wee immediate excursion, as they say. I hope it goes well for you.
See, just before we go, I just want to kind of quickly touch on what's coming up. We've got a kind of couple of questions. Just a wee quick one for Stephen Nichol. I just wanted to ask Wilson about this, and everybody can join in. What do you think about St Mirren and Kilmarnock's COVID regulations? How, I know Murrow points out, but I think it's an absolute disgrace how it's happened. But Wilson, obviously Kilmarnock perspective, what's your kind of thoughts on it?
I mean, it's. I think over the course, and I think there's different. Again, we spoke about earlier about different folk jobs for the boys. There's different rules to cup games as there is to league games, and if, and it's a big if they are found guilty, surely we as the fan need to know what they did to come to that verdict. We need to know, because that may help Hamilton Accies next week. They do something, think, oh, that's how St Mirren get fined, so they would stop doing it. We need to know what the crime is to help other teams.
How can you punish a team for having coronavirus?
But as I've said, and I know Shankers having a pop at me as he does every day in WhatsApp, wait till this happens to Celtic or Rangers. Just wait, and it'll be absolute Armageddon. And what's going to happen further down the line is, if they're not deducted 3 points and rules change or whatever, then all hell will break loose. And I think Jack Ross, I think he interviewed this week, he was quite diplomatic about the whole thing, saying it was wrong. You know, seeing any other walk of life, folk would go and strike over that.
I think it's a disgrace that they're punishing teams for having outbreaks of coronavirus. We're touching on that earlier, amateurs. Every single work department, we're going to have cases. How can you punish people for that? I don't get it. Charlie, what's your kind of thoughts on it as well?
I get where you're coming from the anger prospect of it, but yes, there's going to be clubs that are going to pick it up, but if you read into it or you see the wording from it, they've broke the protocols, and it looks as if they weren't meeting the 2 metre social distance off the park. There seem to be sitting around the pre-match lunch table or whatever, and also the transporting, what we were saying about the Amatun. It looks as if they've broke the protocols from that side, and that's why they've been hit with these punishments. Now, it'll be interesting to see if this is an investigation is going to be raised with Dundee United, because it seems that early indications show that they have broke the protocols as well. Will there be an investigation with regards to that? So it's the club and the concept of they've broke the protocols. Yes, we will get clubs who test positive through no fault of their own, but it's because they've broke the protocols. And also, as well, is what's good for one club must be good for every club as you try and get that uniformity across. I reckon, I believe that Kilmarnock have took legal advice on it to see what the chance of appeal or getting it quashed, but it's the breaking of the protocols. You will get players. We saw a game at the weekend. Was it Clyde against
East Fife?
That was called. That was called off again because of people testing. Is it a case now that every game it's going to get called off? Is the SPFL going to investigate on why it was? And then if they're found to be breaking these protocols, is there a sanction of a 3-0 win for the team and possibly a fine out there? You've got to watch. You don't open a can of worms.
Yeah,
see the thing with Clyde. Oh, sorry.
All right, Mark. Sorry, you go.
See the thing with Clyde in that though, they're part time, so a player could pick it up at his workplace then. So
that was a good example as well.
It'll be much harder for the clubs to stick to
control it.
Kilmarnock full time, so they can almost kind of go into a bubble. But your average part-time player is going in a building site here, an office there, and they're coming in with totally different people all the time. So it'll be much harder to kind of police that, as they say, for that side of it.
Yeah, 100%. But as long as they have not broken their protocols, 100% it'll be difficult. It's the same with yourself, Mark, playing in the tier 6 of the professional game. We saw games at the weekend and that getting called off because of people test. If they have been proven to be that it's outside than a place of work, because there's so many. This bubble is the new buzzword. But how big is this bubble? We're all living in this bubble is effectively, but it's the breaking of the protocols. It's highlighted, and that's why the fine and the match is awarded to them.
I think we need to be told what the protocols they broke are. I think
they weren't the social distancing at meals, and they were travelling, and they were car sharing and travelling.
Right. So I don't know if you've seen the distasteful scenes at Celtic Park tonight. That full Celtic squad must all be that parts of Hamilton bus.
I bet that there's 2 buses, so they can sit, say, like 2 rows back or whatever. That's how there's 2 team buses kind of thing.
And again, probably the only big team, Celtic and Rangers, you know, they'll probably meet for breakfast before training, I would imagine. Are they all going into the dining hall and all sitting 2 metres apart having their breakfast?
You would like to think they are. I know you're not.
I'd like to think that as well, but I can tell you probably no.
But if players test positive, i.e. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which calls a match to be unable to fulfil, then the SPFL will investigate it. Whether we agree with it, again, back to a refereeing decision, whether we agree with it or not, we're going to respect it with regards to that. But yeah, if they're found guilty of breaking these protocols, it might be a good idea for them to come out once the case is finished. Once the case has been finished, it might be a good idea to come out and say, well, this is why you lost the game 3-0, because you couldn't fulfill it, and you broke this protocol, and this protocol. And then
transparency is all we're looking for.
100%.
Why could Kilmarnock and St Mirren no able to rearrange their match with Motherwell to play that another time?
Because again, they're into this. They don't have enough fixtures. They don't have enough free fixtures in the season.
See, the thing is, though, like Rangers and Celtic are playing on a Thursday night in the Europa League, so why could they play on a Wednesday night or something like that? Exactly. Or there's no supporters, so they could play in a Tuesday afternoon or something, like a reserve game, like kind of thing. You know,
this is where you get into
the punishment type of thing. Is that what it basically is?
This is where you go into another legal and another thing. You're not allowed to schedule matches on Champions League nights in Europe, but you can rearrange matches that have been postponed. You can't schedule out straight away on those, and that's where you fall into a different thing. Now they want everybody know to do it. So that the maximum audience of the Champions League games and stuff like that. Yeah, you'll know 100% well, Mark, and this is no a slant in any way, shape or form. When you played your reserve games with United, you played at Hurlford on a Thursday afternoon at 2:00. One man in a dug, but there was 3 officials that turned up. Because there's no fans, but again, it's the hindy. So this is where we can't reschedule this, we can't reschedule that.
But they have kind of, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but they've laid down a marker. They've done it now, so it has to go across the board, kind of thing. Like it's like a ref getting a yellow card in the first 5 minutes. Kind every tackle after that, people say it has to be kind of yellow. If you know what I mean, he's laid down a marker. So
obviously,
the season, if teams break rules, then it's going to have to be the same punishment.
But obviously, Dundee United fulfilled their fixture, but they've still tested positive. So there's maybe an investigation of why they got it because of this, but because they fulfilled their fixture, they'll no suffer. Well, Hamilton beat them 2-0, but there'll no be that bigger influence of the decision, i.e. 3-0 win to Livingston, or 3-0.
I've seen something about they done a team photo or something like that, and obviously they're all close together, so that's maybe where it's. This
is a possibility. We need to wait and see how it all develops, etc., etc.
But that is going to do us for this week. Again, I want to thank Charlie, our special guest, for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure to welcome you on, and I hope you'll join us again.
Anytime, Scott, Mark, anytime.
Charlie. Great to see
you need any refereeing, should we say, knowledge of the games, then give somebody else a shout.
Wilson and Shankers, again, pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much for doing it.
No, all my pleasure.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And we'll see everyone next week. We'll be back next week. Thanks very much, everyone. Cheers.